Hey everybody, it's Captain Trucker. Welcome back to the channel. I want to talk in this video about my experiences in the last 7 years here in the Philippines and what I learned from years early on of being poor, what it's like to be poor as an expat in the Philippines. So like, I've told this story before. When I first came out here years ago, I was sort of broke, basically like between careers, and I used to do accounting work. And something happened to me in my 30s or late 20s or something. I kind of just walked off the earth for a while, and I don't have time to get into that story right now, but basically I found myself a number of years later in the Philippines. And when I first got here, I literally had about $700 to my name in a plastic bag that I traveled with. And of course I met somebody online, and I took a big risk, although I didn't have like too much to lose at the time in terms of money. But yeah, I came out here, and I came out to the provinces, and like right away, I was only here for 30 days and I got my girlfriend pregnant, which I didn't realize it at the time until afterwards when I was back like in the Carlsbad, San Diego area. I got a message, and it was a good surprise because we were trying to, so that was nice. But then I realized, geez, like I really got to find a new career. And I've told this story before. I was sitting in a truck stop in my car sleeping, and I saw these big semi trucks come in, and I thought, geez, I should like become a truck driver since I spend so much time in my car. And I did. So that year I got my permit and license and started working. I came back to the Philippines like 2 or 3 times that year while my girlfriend was pregnant and for my son's birth, so that was cool. But man, there was a lot of trips. I made like 13 trips over the coming years, maybe 14, 15 now. And what I wanted to say though, the point of this video is more about what I learned, being poor all those years. Because like I said, I had a career in my 20s, but I spent about a good 5-6 years, maybe 7-8 years of my life like relatively poor, as an American, and then living in the Philippines poor. What I learned, like the poverty, low income, poor mindset, like it kind of sucks. That's basically what I can conclude after all these years. And I think that part of me was in like denial, because I think when you're poor, you start to tell yourself like, oh, environments don't matter, the type of people I'm around don't matter, these were all just creations by an industrialized society or something. It's capitalism. And you sort of like, you develop these maybe subconsciously like these philosophical ways of looking at life. But yeah, I mean, I can't get around it. And I think for me, maybe I was in denial as well. Like, I think I was in denial about being poor and my surroundings, not now, but sometimes it was like poverty, I mean, there's people like in poverty still in the provinces. When I say poverty, I don't just mean poor, I mean like, substandard actual living, like not even a lot of food, dilapidated shacks, houses, stuff like that. And it's it's kind of, it's really hard to deal with for Filipinos, for Americans, for anybody who's poor. It's like there's kind of no way around it. And the Filipinos through history are always known for their resilience, their simplicity, being content and happy. And those were all stuff that I was always trying to adapt in my own life. But I realized I'm just not cut out for it. Like I'm not cut out to be poor. It's a harder way to go. Like it makes life harder. It really does. The biggest takeaway I've learned from it is that it's not so much always about your specific, thank you, thanks for the coffee. It's not so much about the specific environment in people. It's about options, it's about having variety, and money can certainly provide that. But yeah, it was really hard, you know, being a father in the Philippines and working. And, you know, after all these years, I learned like to be frugal though. That's what being poor taught me. So I was able to start saving a lot of cash while being a truck driver, and I was able to make, you know, good investments and do options traded and buy different stocks and stuff like that. And so I've done okay. Like I finally, you know, I built a small unit, and I'm almost done the construction on this house, which is going to my son. And, you know, it took a long time to get there. And like, even though it's a small house in the Philippines, like it still cost, you know, a fairly good amount of like cash. So I'm happy that I was able to do it, and I'm proud that I was able to do it for my son. But yeah, it wasn't easy getting there, man. And like now that, you know, sort of coming out on the other side of being poor all those years, I don't want to live like poor anymore. I don't want to live like a poor-minded lifestyle anymore, because I just don't think it's for me. Like, I don't need to, and I don't want to, you know. But it's not so much about like, oh, I won't live in the provinces, or I won't live around these types of people, or I only want to live with like, you know, middle upper class people in a prosperous city like BGC or something like that. For me, it's about the variety. Like, I love all these places. I love the beach. I love the provinces. I love like the simple life, but I also like the urban life, you know. And now that I, you know, can do it, I'm going to, because it's like, you know, I'm in my 40s going into my 50s, and like when I was younger, I think I was more resilient to that collective energy of what, you know, low income and poor and poverty environments, and maybe some people you meet. I didn't realize that they can have an effect on you too, and it's a real thing. You know, like they talk about crab mentality, and this isn't just exclusive to like the Filipino culture. Obviously, it's in, you know, human nature. It's, you know, basically the crabs are all in a bucket. They know they're all gonna die. Some crabs will try to climb out, and the other crabs will basically pull them back in for no logical reason other than they're all gonna die together, basically. You know, sometimes apparently the crabs get envious, they get jealous, and it's sort of like, you know, if you can't have it, nobody can, type of thing. And I do see that in poor groups. I see those jealousies, I see the envy. And you see this like in, you know, low income situations and families in America and any Western country. But I guess, you know, these kind of extremes are more apparent in countries in the developing world, like in the Philippines, because you see the extremity more of wealth and poverty, and it's more extreme. You know, there's not much in between sometimes. So yeah, it's kind of been it's been interesting kind of seeing the way that evolves over time. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think maybe on some level I developed a denial myself about being poor, but yeah, nothing good really kind of comes from it. It just limits your options, you know. Like, I want to live in different environments. I want to live in the province. Even though I'm building this house, I might want to rent a condo in the city, stay at like beach resorts sometimes, because it's good for me mentally as an expat, and the fact that like I still am, you know, an American. I've lived most of my life in the Western world. It's hard to fully like assimilate to like a province lifestyle as an expat, especially as you get older, you know. If you haven't been conditioned to live in those situations for like basically your whole life, it's not always easy to simply adapt and assimilate. And I think there's like possibly I don't know if disillusion's the right word, but you see that in some retirees. You know, they come here on limited budgets and they think they're going to shut themselves in a house in the province or something like that, and you know, you end up with a lot of unhappy expats, possibly disillusioned. Like I said, they think they're going to live like kings. It's not going to happen, you know, because even in the developing world, if you want to live a balanced life, you still are going to need a little bit of money. You know, you can't just do it off $1,000 a month or something. I mean, I've lived here off like $600-700 a month, and yeah, it's pretty basic. You know, you're not going to be living some like lavish lifestyle as a retiree off that kind of income. You know, so it's just something to keep in mind. But yeah, the whole back to the being poor mindsets and everything. I mean, you have, you know, proven more susceptible to mental health, physical health, and it affects generations, man, because you start to teach, you know, your kids and you teach your family that that's a normal way of life. And it is and it isn't. I mean, it's normal for like to be poor, and that's the way of life, but there is something to be learned from, I guess, the Western world in terms of being industrious and ambitious and all that. Like, those are good things. And the thing about like systemic poverty is that, you know, people in certain parts of the world, maybe in certain parts of the Philippines, because of the families they're born in or opportunities, infrastructure, education, like some people really don't have the opportunities, you know, and that's a sad thing. But then, you know, in America and in the Philippines, you have certain people that, like I said, they just have the poor mindset. Some of them do have bad attitudes. Maybe they gamble, they drink too much, bad habits, no motivation, lazy. I mean, you get that in all cultures, and that's, you know, that's a very real thing too. But I think it's a conditioned mindset that we tend to learn. But make no mistake, like, back to being like an expat in the Philippines on a limited budget, like say $1,000 a month. I mean, it's not going to be, you're not going to be living a great life in retirement. Like, if I went through what I had gone through as a 60-70-year-old, okay, I'm not sure I would have been able to make it out on top. I'm not sure I would have been able to restart my life, restart a career, save money, invest money, build a house and all this. Like, I'm not sure. And that can be very hard for an older person coming out here to live that way, okay? Make no mistake. So I'm not saying it's not possible, but you got to be very realistic, and you got to play your cards right, and you got to have a good balance of environment, friends, people, etc. Because, you know, God forbid you get into some bad situation, you know, like in the provinces or with a Filipina, and you're on a limited budget. I mean, that can be a very tough life, man. Especially, you know, living your final years that way. It can be terrible. Like, who wants to live their final years and like being poor, man? I mean, it's hard, but you know, my heart goes out to a lot of retirees because people go through things in life, man. It's like, you know, you can lose your career, you lose family, your kids can grow up and move on, you know, you've been through divorces. I mean, life's hard, man. And you know, whether people more often than not are responsible for the situations they get themselves into, but it's hard to kind of ignore the pain and suffering still that, you know, some men have to endure, you know, when they reach these ages, sort of in those conditions. It's pretty tough. And yeah, people say to me things like, oh, you know, you don't talk about like, you know, poverty or being poor in the US. Like, there's plenty of like homeless in LA and so forth. Well, yeah, that's true. But like the poverty, it's not even comparable, dude. It's really not. I mean, that kind of stuff still does happen with certain people. And I've seen it, and it's ugly. It's a horrible thing. It's very sad. But that's one of those kind of tragic examples of poverty. I mean, it's, you know. But again, through that, like I said, a lot of Filipinos, not just because of that, but I mean, because of colonialization, history, natural disasters, the Pacific Ring of Fire, they have developed, they're much stronger and much more resilient than other cultures, such as Americans or Europeans. So, you know, a lot of them are able to stay happy and be content in such conditions. But believe me, most Americans will not be able to roll that way. You know, it's not going to be the same type of, you know, let's just have a simple party and a big smile on our face. It's kind of an interesting thing. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I mean, there's miserable Filipinos too that are poor. I mean, but by and large, most of the culture are positive people. You'll see a lot more smiles, but I don't want to create this impression that everybody who's poor or in poverty are the happiest people on earth, because they're not. Some of them are not. Some of them are. It just depends. Like I said, a lot of it's the mindset of the individual. There's poor people that have ethics. You know, they have a sense of pride and they live by a code. And then you get some poor people that don't, you know. And, you know, it's hard to put everybody in the same category, even as expats. So we all go through different things. But one thing I can say for sure, as a foreigner, as an expat, I would not recommend coming here on a very limited budget. Now, I've done videos where I've talked about how I've lived here and could live here off less than $1,000 a month. Do I recommend it? No, absolutely not. I'd probably say at least 2,000 US dollars currently should be your minimum, but that's just my 2 cents. Anyway, hope that helps somebody out there. You guys take care. It's Captain Trucker. Please subscribe. I gotta drink some water. I got some coffee here, so. Sorry, I got distracted by my coffee. All right, you guys take care. Bye-bye.